It took me 6 months, 500 hours, and $1,200 to create the perfect dress. And someone destroyed it in just 7 minutes. The video you're watching is called The Midnight Dress: How My Stepmother Tried to Break Us but Failed in the Most Spectacular Way. You're watching Revenge Her Way, where payback isn't petty, it's personal. My name is Monica Reyes. I'm a seamstress in Portland, Oregon. And this was supposed to be the most important week of my daughter's life. Ava, my husband's daughter from his first marriage, just made it to the National Teen Dance Finals in Dallas. It's a dream only a handful of girls ever reach. I may not have given birth to her, but Ava is my heart and soul. That's why I wanted to give her something no store could sell. So I made it myself, her solo jazz competition dress. Ruby red, fire-cut silhouette, over 8,000 hand-stitched crystals that caught light like a spotlight. The bodice hugged like second skin, built for movement and magic. It wasn't just a costume, it was armor. Hope. Love. The night before our flight to Texas, I went into my sewing studio to do one last steaming and packing. And that's when I saw it. The dress, shredded, sliced from neckline to hem, drenched in coffee. Hairspray fused the ruined silk like glue. Every crystal was dull, broken, or missing. My heart just stopped. I dropped to my knees. The world spun. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook so badly I couldn't even pick up the fabric. It felt like watching someone strangle the very love I'd poured into every stitch. Someone did this. And I had a very good idea who, but I didn't cry long, because what she didn't know is I'd been ready for this moment for years. And I had a backup plan. It wasn't the first time, but this time I had proof. I sat alone in my sewing room, the light from the laptop casting a pale glow on my face. My hands hovered over the keyboard, motionless, my heart pounding like I'd just run 10 blocks barefoot. On screen, the footage was clear, clearer than I expected. There she was, Susan, my husband's mother, my daughter's saboteur, dressed in beige slacks, a pastel cardigan, and latex gloves. Casual, methodical. She moved through my home like she owned it. Like breaking something precious was just another errand on her list. She didn't even hesitate. Walked straight into my studio, pulled out a pair of tailor shears, and began slicing. First the bodice, then the skirt. Her hands moved slow and deliberate, like she'd done it before. Like this wasn't the first time she'd destroyed something that wasn't hers. And it wasn't. Over the years, accidents had followed Ava like a curse whenever Susan was nearby. There was the 4th grade art fair when Ava's sculpture, a clay phoenix, mysteriously shattered after being dropped off the piano. The 7th grade piano recital she missed because someone forgot to tell her the time had changed. Even her point shoes for her first solo got singed in a hairdryer accident at Susan's house. David always said, "Come on, Monica. She's old. She's forgetful. She means well." But I knew better. Susan wasn't forgetful. She was strategic. I hadn't planned on installing a camera, not until 2 months ago when Ava's training shoes, the ones custom fitted for her arch, were mysteriously damaged again. The soles snapped, almost made her fall mid-practice. That night, I ordered a tiny motion sensor camera off Amazon and hid it above the shelving in my studio. I didn't tell Ava. I didn't even tell David. I just waited. And now here I was, watching the truth unravel, frame by frame. At one point in the footage, Susan paused, looked around the room, walked over to my sewing desk, and picked up the framed photo of me and Ava at her first recital. She held it for a moment, then she turned it face down. That was when something inside me snapped. It wasn't rage, not even grief. It was something colder, sharper, a quiet kind of fury. The kind that doesn't scream, the kind that waits. I could have called the police. I could have filed a report for trespassing, vandalism, destruction of property. But I knew what would happen. David would freeze. He'd try to protect her. He always had. He grew up surviving her manipulation. He never learned how to fight it. So I closed the laptop, took a deep breath, and smiled. Because this time, I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to plan. Ava's competition was in less than 36 hours. We were flying to Dallas in the morning. Susan thought she'd stolen that moment from us. But what she didn't know, what she never even imagined, was that I had a second dress. One I'd made in secret. One I'd poured even more love into. A backup built not out of fear, but out of foresight. The next day, I would watch my daughter shine in front of an audience of thousands. And Susan? Susan was about to find out exactly how much damage a quiet woman with a needle and a plan could do. Because I wasn't just bringing a dress to Dallas. I was bringing evidence. Everyone laughed when I told them I always make a backup. They're not laughing now. The night Susan destroyed the dress, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table long after everyone had gone to bed. The house wrapped in silence, so thick it felt like mourning. My fingers kept tracing the rim of my coffee mug over and over, not because I needed caffeine, but because I needed something to hold on to. Something real. Something solid. And then I stood up, walked down the hallway, and opened the hallway closet. Behind the winter coats and spare blankets, tucked carefully between garment bags, was Project Firebird. It wasn't just a backup dress. It was a promise. I'd started it a year ago, quietly, secretly. Every time Ava had a major performance, someone found a way to sabotage it. So I began sewing the Firebird late at night when everyone else was asleep. No one knew. Not David. Not even Ava. It was a deep midnight gold, like the exact color of the sky just before dawn. The skirt flared with layers of organza that shimmered when you moved, like feathers in motion. Each panel was stitched with iridescent thread and edged with fine, hand-cut faux peacock feathers. And the bodice, was embroidered with tiny Swarovski crystals in gold and blood orange, fanning upward like flames licking toward her shoulders. The inspiration? A phoenix. Ava's spirit. Unbreakable. Unyielding. Reborn every damn time someone tried to bury her. That morning, when Ava walked into the sewing room and saw what had happened to her red competition dress, her knees buckled. I caught her before she hit the floor. Her breath was ragged. Her voice, barely a whisper. "Mom, why does she hate me so much?" I wanted to answer. I wanted to scream. But all I could do was hold her, rocking gently as if she were still a child. Then I pulled away, looked her straight in the eyes. "She doesn't get to win," I told her. "Not this time." I led her down the hallway and pulled the garment bag out into the light. Ava blinked. "What's that?" I smiled. "Hope." I unzipped it slowly, letting the fabric catch the morning light. The crystals danced, throwing soft golden sparkles across the walls. Ava gasped, literally gasped, and reached out like she was afraid to touch it. "You made this?" she whispered. "I made this, for every time she tried to tear you down." Ava didn't say anything at first. Her lip trembled, and then, just like that, she broke. She started sobbing, silent tears that shook her entire frame. "No one's ever done anything like this for me," she said. "You're worth it," I said. "You've always been worth it." That afternoon, we adjusted the hem together, side by side. I let her sew the final loop on the back. She was so proud. It fit like it was born for her. That night, when everyone was asleep, I went back into the sewing room. There was one last thing left, the final row of crystals along the neckline. I worked under the desk lamp in silence, each stitch a steady, sacred beat in my chest. It felt like armor. Not just for her, but for me too. By the time I finished, the sun was starting to rise. The room was filled with golden light, the dress glowing on the mannequin like something out of a dream. We were ready. What I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that someone else had been watching. And they weren't just planning to ruin Ava's dress. They were planning to ruin everything. She thought she'd ruined Ava's chances. What she didn't know? Ava was about to steal the entire show. The moment Ava stepped onto that stage in Dallas, everything stopped. The lights dimmed, the music cued, and for a second, the entire auditorium held its breath. Then she appeared, wrapped in midnight gold, shimmering like a living firework. There was an audible gasp, not from me, not from the judges, from the crowd, and from Susan. I watched her from across the venue. Her face twisted in confusion first, then rage. Her eyes darted to David beside her, who said nothing, just stared, wide-eyed, like he'd never really seen his daughter before. Because that's what Ava looked like. Unstoppable, untouchable, like someone who had survived fire and come back brighter. The dress caught every beam of stage light and fractured it into gold. She spun, leaped, hit every beat with power and grace. The feathers lifted with her movement, the crystals shimmered like stars crashing. It wasn't just a dance, it was a rebirth, and every eye in the room followed her like they were witnessing a miracle. But what Susan didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the real show wasn't just on stage. Backstage, just 10 minutes before Ava's performance, I'd called in a favor. Ava's choreographer, Lindsay, was tight with one of the competition organizers. She believed in Ava more than anyone, and when I showed her the video of Susan sneaking into our home and cutting that red dress to pieces, her mouth fell open. She didn't even blink. Just asked, "Do you want this shown to the board or the entire damn prep room?" I didn't have to think. 5 minutes later, in the staff green room, where coaches, judges, and senior staff had gathered to prep for the final showcase, the security footage played on the big screen. There was no commentary, no background music, just the cold, grainy footage of Susan slipping into our house with gloves on, pulling out scissors, and cutting through Ava's dream like it was paper. And at the end, the frame where she looked straight into the sewing room mirror, smirked, and walked out. Silence. Then whispers. Then the questions started. Someone called David's name over the loudspeaker. He was paged to the green room. So was Susan. I didn't follow them. I didn't have to. Because in that exact moment, on stage, Ava landed her final pirouette, extended her arms to the ceiling, and froze in the finishing pose. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the crowd erupted. A standing ovation. The kind that builds from the back of the room and rolls forward like thunder. The judges didn't even glance at each other. One by one, they raised their scorecards. Perfect tens. Across the board. I pressed my hand to my chest. It wasn't about the scores. Not really. It was that after everything, Ava still chose to dance. Still chose joy. Still chose to rise. And Susan? She never returned to her seat. David did, looking like he'd just seen a ghost. He didn't say a word. Just reached over and took my hand, held it tight, like maybe he finally saw everything I had fought for. But the part that changed everything came after the curtain closed. Because while Ava took photos with her medal and beamed in front of every camera, a local TV crew approached me. They'd seen the clip, and they wanted the full story. Some people keep journals. I kept evidence. The medals were barely cold in Ava's hands when Susan cornered us in the parking lot outside the convention center. Her lipstick was smudged, and her eyes had that wild, righteous shine, like she was the one owed an apology. I knew that look. I'd been watching it chip away at this family for nearly a decade. "What you showed those people," she hissed. "That was private. You ambushed me." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even flinch. I just opened my purse and pulled out a small, worn leather notebook, soft at the edges, cracked at the spine. She blinked. Everyone else froze. David stepped closer. So did a few parents we'd spoken with earlier, some holding coffee, others still in their team jackets, all drawn in like moths to the flame of long overdue truth. "This isn't about just one video," I said. "This is about 7 years of you sabotaging a child." Susan scoffed. "Oh, please." I flipped it open. October 12th, 2016, I read aloud. "Ava's 4th grade art project for the state fair went missing from our living room. It was later found in the fireplace, burned. No explanation. Witness, housekeeper, Marisol." David stiffened. I turned the page. March 3rd, 2018. "Ava's ballet shoes found soaked in bleach. You claimed you thought they were laundry. Photo attached. See discoloration." "Stop," Susan said through her teeth. "You're making it sound worse than it was." I kept going. July 9th, 2019. "Ava's acceptance letter to Young Dancers of America, intercepted, hidden in your guest room dresser. We found it 4 months later, unopened. Ava missed the registration deadline." I passed the notebook to David. His hands trembled as he took it. The other parents were silent. One mom audibly gasped. "I started writing everything down the night Ava cried herself to sleep over a missed piano recital," I said, turning toward Susan. "You told the school I'd canceled it. Posed as me over the phone. That's in there, too. Along with the call log." David was pale. His lips moved, but no sound came. He flipped through the pages like they were pieces of a puzzle he had tried not to solve. "Why?" he asked finally, looking at his mother. Why would you do this? She's not really your daughter, Susan spat, her voice cracking. She doesn't belong to us. She's a liability. Enough. David's voice cut through the air like a snapped wire. I want the key back, right now, and I want you out of our lives. She stared at him, stunned. David, you don't mean that. I'm your mother. No, he said, you're the person who's been hurting my daughter for years, and I let you, but not anymore. Then something I never expected happened. Ryan, Susan's husband, Ava's grandfather, stepped forward holding a manila envelope. I found this in your closet, he said, voice low and shaking. A box filled with things you took from Ava, photos, broken trophies, even a lock of her hair. What the hell is wrong with you? Susan's mouth fell open. She looked at him like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. Because it was. You're sick, Ryan said, and I'm filing for divorce. Her scream caught in her throat, small and shrill like a kettle left too long on the burner. She turned to me, venom rising, but I didn't give her the chance. There's more, I said, voice steady. We backed it all up. Photos, logs, voice memos, even texts. If you want to go down screaming, we'll let you. Or you can walk away. She didn't move, but she didn't speak again either. And as she stood there, frozen, defeated, surrounded by the weight of everything she'd buried for so long, Ava walked past her, chin up, eyes forward, gold dress glittering like a flame in the wind. And just before we reached the car, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. One that made my heart stop cold. You think Susan was the only one watching? Revenge doesn't always come with fire. Sometimes it's just cold, collected, and final. The night after the competition, Susan posted a long apology on Facebook, said she was deeply sorry for her behavior, that she was seeking help and stepping away from her community roles to reflect and grow. The comments under the post were mostly silent. A few heart emojis from people who still didn't know the truth. But then, the account was gone. Just vanished. She deleted everything. Ryan filed for divorce the following Monday. Said he couldn't live in a house built on secrets. Said he'd found more than just the box. He'd found letters. Notes. Even clippings of Ava's name from local newspapers, folded and tucked like trophies, like proof of what Susan had taken away. There are no words for that kind of sickness. No poetry in it. Just weight. But we didn't talk about her after that. Not in our home. Not at the little barbecue place down the street where we celebrated Ava's win. We sat in a corner booth, still sticky with leftover confetti in our hair. David ordered ribs, and Ava, glowing in that gold dress, devoured a plate of sweet potato fries like a girl who just danced her soul out in front of 3,000 people. She was laughing. Really laughing. And somewhere between the laughter and the soft jazz playing from a dusty speaker above our heads, I felt something strange. Not relief, not pride, but space. Like we had finally cleared a room in our lives that had been filled with smoke for too long. Like we could finally breathe without choking on the memory of being made to feel small. Later that night, just before Ava went to bed, her phone buzzed. She read the screen, blinked once, then gasped. It's from Juilliard, she whispered. I didn't say anything. She handed me the phone, a personal invitation to audition. They'd seen the viral video. They wanted to see her live. I smiled, but behind my smile, something inside me cracked just a little. Because when people say things happen for a reason, they never talk about the wreckage that reason leaves behind. They never talk about the long nights, or the shaking hands, or the weight of pretending you're okay just to keep the peace. And some of us, we don't want revenge that ends in screaming. We want the kind that ends in silence. The kind where they know what they did, and they have to live with it. Alone. A few days later, I stood in my sewing room again. The light was soft. The silence, peaceful this time. Ava's golden dress hung by the window, sparkling like it was made of memory and survival. I sat down at my machine. The needle was already threaded. The fabric in my hands was pale blue, new, uncut. And I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. She tried to destroy what I made, but all she did was help us make something unforgettable. Some stories don't end with forgiveness. Some don't end with closure. They just end. But if you've ever had someone try to shrink your joy, ruin your moment, or silence your light, and you kept going anyway, then maybe this story was also a little bit yours. If you felt that, I hope you'll leave a comment. Tell me what you survived. And if you're still healing, we're healing with you. You're not alone. Not here. Not on Revenge Her Way.